It is a weekly Q&A, and we are getting ready to move. So our house is in a state of destruction, and our schedule's all funky. But this is the adventure of life. And anyway, let's get into the Q&A. Let's get into you guys. So Joni asks, having problems in doing cold outreach, just fail to even get people on meetings. I want to work with interior designers and painters. And Joni, because this is one we talked about a little bit privately, I've seen your messages. And for those of you guys who are doing the same thing, you kind of want to pay attention to this because Joni's doing the two worst things I think you can do. One is what he's offering is leads, which is the most generic thing you could possibly offer, right? They get offered that 1,000 times a day. So, like, it used to be for me, I would get, hello, we are latest, greatest SEO company, do keyword research and optimization. I would get that same email like 100 times a week, every week, all year long, right? So at the end of the year, I've seen that message over 5,000 times. So when you show up and you're person 5,001, that's what being leads does, Joni. It puts you in that situation where you're offering them something they've heard 1,000 times before, and it makes the whole battle uphill. So you got to come up with something new, unique, fresh. So I'm not necessarily saying I know your market and know the answer, but there's two things you can do to make that easier. One is spend a couple hours just listen to them and see what their needs are, and figure out a way where you can just like kind of stand out from the noise. Now, as far as the other thing is people don't realize, but the more successful and busy people become, the less time they have for just like meetings. So if getting a little bit of basic information from you requires a 30-minute or a 60-minute or a 90-minute phone call, most busy, successful people are not going to jump on the phone with you for 90 minutes to find out some details, even if you say, I'm going to give them all value. So what you want to do, and in your case, you've actually got a client in a case study. You might just offer it something like an introductory couple of leads for $50 a piece and show people what you've done. That's a far more interesting intro. Even just like narrow it down and talk about how you've generated leads for interior painters. I think you said your niche was. Let me just double check that. Yeah, interior designers and painters. So that'll get you out of those. Just stop doing those two things, offering the same thing as everybody else and making it take a lot of time to get the information. Figure out how you can get to the point in a sentence or two. Lisa, working on my first account and have no idea what to include in the report for the client at the end of the month. Thanks in advance. That's my Heidi B in the background, by the way, and my Zelda B's waking up. So Lisa, you're working on your first account, have no idea what to include in the report for the client at the end of the month. I'll tell you, at least this is something we do really differently in the Wolfpack. That's different than other people. Is everybody else sends updates, and there's a lot of software tools that you can use that'll do that for you. And I've pretty much used, at least in the SEO space, all of them that were available to me at the time where I stopped doing SEO because it just wasn't any fun anymore. And what I found was no matter which one you used, it made the client feel dumb. It made them feel like, I don't understand this. What are they doing for me? Is this good? Is this bad? What do these numbers mean? I see pretty charts. And so one of the principles we've shifted to is what I call the casual update. And it's so much easier. You just fire up Loom and you say, here's what we're doing. Here's how it's going. Any questions, let me know. And then you reset expectations for the next time period. But you do that, you can do your reporting in like 2 minutes, and clients love it more. That's actually the best part. It's not necessarily that it's easier for you, but they love to just hear what's going on in plain English without all the confusing reports. Because if you're looking for like what to do, like what kind of report, what you'll find is no matter what you send them, they have questions about it, and then you spend an hour translating it, and then you think, why didn't I just tell them the translation, that part right from the beginning? James, this was a special one that kind of touched me in my daddy feels. It said, ever have one of those, I need to step back and reevaluate what I'm doing kind of days? Been running a small agency, learning my ass off, and been caught up in the be all to everyone loop. Talk about time suck. Most clients have pay up front. We build them out. Then on our way, no monthly retainers. Yikes. So going to humble the crap out of myself today and finally ask people who've got this business much more dialed in than me. I've got 2 kiddos and 1 on the way. So kind of one of those make or break it moments, realization. Honestly, I love the business. Just think I'm overcomplicating it a lot, trying to serve everyone, everything, which is a pain in the ass. Appreciate any feedback about simplifying, clarifying offers, client management, and just making this business suck less. Hard to admit we don't know it all sometimes, but humble daddy and realizing it's okay to not have all the answers sometimes. Well, firstly, James, I feel you on the daddy thing. It makes it a whole lot more challenging. I'm I'm with you. My Heidi B is right there watching some Peppa Pig as I'm doing this and standing in her high chair. As far as the first part, where if you have one of those, I need to step back and reevaluate what I'm doing. Believe it or not, a lot of times you do that when you're like so frustrated with your agency, you want to throw your hands in the air. And I like to joke, if you don't have one of those every 3 months, you're not doing this right. But in all seriousness, it's actually an important part of your agency to intentionally step back and reevaluate and do that periodically on purpose. So you'll never actually be done with that, just so you know. If you're doing it right, in my opinion, that's like going to be ongoing. Now, as far as kind of how you're like being everyone to everything, Mr. Jerry Generalist, here's the thing, is that a lot of times people skip the most important step, James, which you have mastered or at least figured out, which is how to actually be able to help people, right? They try and market before they actually have that piece. So I'm not telling you that there's ever just one way to solve this, but I just want to give you like what I would do were I in your shoes again. And in some ways I kind of am, right? Like, but anyway, in your situation, so what will make your life a whole lot easier is to realize that you've already created solutions for people. And I'll tell you, this is kind of like a more advanced thing that we normally only share in our masterminds, but there's a huge difference between optimization, which is what most people do, and utilization. And what optimization is it looks like, how can I get my ad costs down another 3 cents, another 50 cents, another dollar, so that I can make these benchmarks? And optimization has some power, but I'll tell you, one of the things that we correct most often in like agencies that we work with is what I call utilization, which is they figured out something that's working and they're not using it enough places. So like, let's just say you figured out how to make Google ads convert for a plumber. There's only 3,000 other plumbers that could benefit from that exact same system you've created. And a lot of times we get caught up in being the generalist and helping people. So I'm willing to bet if you've been helping people, you're sitting on 10, 20 good solutions that have more utilization potential. And so you already have everything that you need. You don't have to like necessarily, like a lot of times people think the solution is I need to go get more clients. But actually what you need to do is get more out of what you've already figured out. So there's two questions that I would ask if I were in your shoes about those situations. One is, firstly, is to optimize for what's fun. So I'd say of all these solutions I've created, if I had to do one of them again and again and again, which one of these would be the most fun for me personally to deliver, that I would actually enjoy doing it? And then the second is the profit thing, and then to look at it and say, which one of these is the most financially viable for myself and my clients? And you'll find almost always actually those kind of overlap in a certain extent, and there's one that's just more fun. And then you kind of like niche down and give that solution to more people. And then the offer kind of sells itself because you have like a case study or a proof of concept. So that's what I would do in your shoes. I hope that's helpful to you, because you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You have to just look at the solutions you're already creating for people and think about which is the best one to then take and run with. And you'll make your agency life a whole lot easier, because it's way easier to optimize like a really good solution than it is to try and figure one out on the spot. Tia, I'm hiring a VA. I want to onboard them professionally. Can anyone point me in the direction of SOP templates? Tia, the best thing to do is not necessarily look at SOPs as a templates. There's a deeper principle that just like you're thinking about when you do it, like, how can I clone myself? So I'll tell you the simplest thing that I do is when I'm creating like a new SOP is I go out into Loom and I slow myself down intentionally and I speak the steps out loud. Step 1, step 2, step 3. And sometimes like you just do that like kind of automatically if you've been doing your agency a while. So it'll take twice as long to finish that task. But what will happen is whenever you need help with that task ever again, you can just send people back to that video over and over and over. And the video is self-explanatory about what needs to be done. So that's like how you want to do that. So whatever template, whatever process you're using now, that's what you want to clone. And SOP templates can be helpful, but like they're not the be all end all. You got to clone what's working for you. Yeah, this is Heidi B. That's my daughter in the background. Victor, what's the best way to craft an offer for a lead generation Facebook ad? Victor, I'll tell you a couple of the ones that work for us. And I learned this from a really smart marketer named Nicholas Kusmich, who is a really badass Facebook ads wizard. He's got a big following. I don't know if you guys know him, but some of you will. And one of the things he had that really made it simpler for me is the best lead magnets are not about like which ad and which copy and how do I come up with it. It's just thinking about how can I demonstrate to my clients I can actually help them by actually helping them. And right, so you're given just a little step in the right direction. So I'll give you an example of one that we've used off and on for years with great success. Is I notice when I speak with lawyers, like 80% of them get their business from referrals. And then I ask them, what are you doing to make referrals happen on purpose? And 80% of those 80% say nothing. And so I made just a little one-page checklist that shows them everything they could be doing to make referrals happen on purpose. So Nicholas Kushmich calls this SAGE, which stands for short. A is actionable. G is goal-oriented. And E is educational, right? So this actually makes it easier to create because you're not trying to make some long-winded 300-page ebook because people don't have time for that, especially in offline niches for those of you guys. But even elsewhere, like nobody has time to read the 300-page ebook. I don't know how many of you guys have ebooks that just died on your hard drive, never to be read again in hard drive purgatory, but I have lots. So it's one page, right? It's like direct and to the point, actually helping them, and it's actionable. The minute they read this checklist, they can go ahead and do one or two of them. It's goal oriented to help them get more referrals, but it's also educational because it shows them all the things they're not doing that they could be doing working with us. So immediately it moves them from one step to the other. And then when we create the landing page and the ad, it's just giving that thing away, right? How would you like the one page checklist that's going to show you all the 26 things that you should be doing for your referrals? So a little bit counterintuitive because we usually think about page and ads and what goes first, but think about like just how can I help move somebody one step, and then the page and the ad and the copy and all those things kind of write itself, and it's not as challenging to do. Josh, how do you stay focused? Actually, Josh, I'm personally horrible at it. And one of the reasons I'm so big on creating processes is because then I can get someone else to stay focused for me and stay on top of those things. Because I have that little entrepreneurial ADD. Like I'm already bored of after a week of things and want to try something new. So I'm sure a lot of you guys have that too. So if you're like kind of like high level creative like me, and don't like details, then the fastest thing you can do is create processes for your details as soon as humanly possible so that someone can stay focused on your behalf, and you'll find those details get executed really, really well. Derek, I'm having trouble getting clients. Was in the personal injury niche, now switched to home services, emails getting blocked, no replied on LinkedIn, just running Facebook ads now, but things are getting frustrating. Any help? Derek, this when I say like it's your offer, you're like actually the example of the offer, because it's not like the amount of messages you're sending on LinkedIn. Like your question implies that I'm sending a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, my emails are getting blocked, I'm just running Facebook ads. That suggests to me like a whole lot of volume. And if you're sending a whole lot of volume and nobody's responding, the common thing is you're saying the same broken thing over and over and over. And usually it's some form of like, hey, we do blank, blank, and blank, call us. If it's that good, like, hey, we can generate leads, we can do SEO, we can do Facebook ads. And what you need to do is like, just think differently. So like Joni had the question in the beginning, right? Like if he's helped an interior designer, believe it or not, I just know from like working in some of these niches like that, if you can just offer like, hey, I can get you lead type X for $50 a piece or $40 a piece, you'll sell thousands of those leads. So if you like just condense what you're doing into a simple to say yes to offer, not trying to sell them, we do ads and all these services, what you'll find is it's easier. So you want to think about like what's a smaller yes I can get them to agree to, and you'll make it so you don't need to send nearly as much volume. Like if you're sending 10 messages and at least 4 people aren't responding, then whatever you're offering in your messaging is broken, unless you're sending it to people who aren't seeing it in the first place. But other than that, it just means like offer, 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 which is why I'm so adamant. The minute you get that, by the way, your life will get easier, and half the people you will respond to will say yes, and then you get to pick and choose which ones you want. It's a lot more fun when you have it that way, by the way. Stephanie, what are you using for monthly reporting? Again, Stephanie, we're different in that we do casual updates. I actually don't do any like official monthly reporting. I just, when I feel like it, send my clients an email, and I would say every second Friday we send them a Loom video that just says, hey, here's what we're doing, here's how it's going, and they're usually 2-3 minutes long. They're very short and casual. Clients love them. Like use them. They work. Gav, guys, what platform have you built your website on? If WordPress, what theme did you use that best suits your digital agency? Gav, I've probably built like 100 websites. I'll tell you the two biggest shortcuts I have. If you're going to do it on WordPress, which is probably the best tool, and you're not a designer, Astra theme. Has sharp looking templates for free that you can pick from, and you can build a sharp looking website like that without actually having any design skills. It's very like copy and paste. The other tool that we actually use is I actually have built our current website on lead pages, and I'm actually a much bigger fan of lead pages. So each individual page on the website is actually like a lead capture, lead generation tool. If you got the budget for that, I think it's like $37 a month or something like that, then I would suggest, and if you're going to have the volume, go something like that, and you can make it like really convert as well. Stephanie, does anyone have a salesperson they use for their agency? Do you have them as an employee or contractor? And does anyone have a killer salesperson contract they can share? Stephanie, I've used a lot of salespeople over the years. I'll tell you one of the downsides that you may not be thinking about with salespeople, because usually what happens, and I'm not saying this is the case with you, but usually when somebody's interested in bringing in a salesperson, it's because either their offer isn't converting and they want the closer to cover that up, or because they're just sick and tired of doing sales calls. In either case, what will make your life easier is what I often say, which is get the offer dialed in, because then it eases your burden of needing a good salesperson in the first place. But I'll tell you what happens with salespeople that people don't think about. Firstly, they're human. So they have sick days sometimes, or they need to go out of town, or their girlfriend broke up with them. They have ups, they have downs, and it's not just like, it's the very opposite of whatever set and forget it is. Now, this sounds a little unbelievable, but I promise you it's true, is the salesperson we're using in our agency now, we actually use two different salespeople. One, the most common one, which I've been talking about in the group the last week, are Loom videos. That's my salesperson. Go watch the 5-minute videos. So if you actually looked at one of our funnels right now, I call it the ultimate 80-20 funnel. But what we've done is, in the personal injury niche, is I figured out a list of here's all the people who are buying advertisements and paying for them now, which is a much smaller list than all the total lawyers in existence. So I'm not trying to reach everybody. And actually that cuts our ad costs down, way, way down. I think I spend like $200 to mail out some letters. And I mail like old-fashioned handwritten letters that say, go watch this Loom video, and they watch the Loom video, and then I get a message in my inbox that says, okay, I'm ready to get started. That's our sales process, and it doesn't require a salesperson on that. And there's a reason to do it that way, by the way. One, because it's more conducive to busy, successful professionals. But the other reason is my Loom video does not have up and down days. My Loom video does not disappear. Every once in a while the tech breaks, but for the most part, rain or shine, I can depend on that with real consistency that you can't always with salespeople. Salespeople might want to go off and try their own thing, or they may say, you know what, I don't really like this market, or on and on and on, right? Like, they're humans, so they have all those kind of human challenges. And when you get it right just in a Loom video, you don't need all of it. The second one we use, and this is more like introvert friendly, people who don't like being on video, is the Google Doc. We just take what we would say in a Loom video and we write it out in like 4 or 5 pages on a Google Doc, and then we send people to the Google Doc and they read the 4 or 5 pages to get all the details, and then they say, I'd like to work with you. So I think that's a far better model, and I'm not telling you can't find a good salespeople. So having said that, if you're still like interested in getting a salesperson or some kind of employee contractor, the best thing you can do is go in the groups where those people are, advertise that you're looking for somebody who like knows this niche already and knows how to close, and then give them like 5 to 10 sales calls as a practice run. And you'll learn more in 5 to 10 sales calls, whether they're not just a fit, can they close, but I think it's equally important that they sign up clients the right way, because what happens is if they make, like, say, for example, some salespeople will say anything to make a sale and a commission, but it just fucks you up in delivery, because then you have all these clients who can't possibly be satisfied. So I think it's equally important that they also like represent accurately what you can do in the selling process. So yeah, just go post in the group, give them 5 to 10, record the calls, and you'll know whether or not after 5 or 10 calls, whether you want to do 500 calls with that person or not. Last question we got here. Zahir, getting clients is easy, but building trust or promise is hard, especially for new digital marketers. Can you suggest how we can build trust in that new situation? Zahir, trust is really only 2 things, really, and most people like kind of overcomplicate it. I think it's making promises and keeping promises. And a lot of marketers get really good after a while, after practice, at making promises, but very few agency owners are actually equally as good at number two. And I'll tell you the biggest mistake that people make in this trust process, and it's not what people think. It's not like, it's they make promises that are too big, that are so hard to fulfill. So Ilka and I met in a group coaching group, to give you an example. And the idea is, we're going to give you the entire framework where you need to get to your first $100,000 month. That was like what we signed up for, like, I don't know, like 4 or 5, 6 years ago, something like that. And the interesting thing, having been through that program, it's a really good program. It helps a lot of people and they make a lot of sales. But I would say only like 5 or 10% of people actually get to the 100,000 a month. And so even the people who are making 10 or 20 grand feel frustrated, or because they haven't hit that big promise, and so they don't go on and do more. And the simplest solution to me is to actually, if I was in their shoes, and I'm not telling them what to do, they're big and successful on their own, but I would narrow that promise to hey, we'll help you make your first sale from a cold Facebook ad for a $5,000 or a $10,000 package. And then what happens is, when you hit one, you're successful, right? So the big problem that most agencies have, believe it or not, is they're just making promises too big. We'll get you number one in Facebook ad, or we'll get you number one in Google overnight. We're going to get you 10 to 1 on your Facebook ads, right? But then in reality, it takes some months of split testing and trying ideas, and then the clients get frustrated because they're like, I thought we were going to get 10 to 1, right? So if you want to have trust with clients, the first thing is make promises that are actually achievable. And this is hard for people, because sometimes that means turning away sales, but turning away sales that would just turn into disappointed people later because you didn't keep promises. And on the keeping promises front, the simplest thing to do is to think about not just how to keep that promise, but always set the expectations such that you can over deliver. So if, for example, if you know you can get $50 leads for a client and you're selling them, I think I can get you $100 leads, then they're going to come out ahead, right? So you want to always be setting expectations that you can exceed, and then do the little things above and beyond that most agencies do. And then what will happen is, you'll be making promises that can be kept, and you'll over deliver on keeping those promises, and then trust inevitably flows out of those two things. So most agencies don't do those two things too well. They either are really good at keeping promises and have a hard time making sales, making believable promises that make people want to buy from them, or they get really good at making promises, but really bad at the delivery. And I've done that too, so I'm not picking on anybody who does it. But usually it's not because you're not any good and your service has no value. It's usually because the promise you've made is so big and so massive and so unachievable for 90% of clients that they're just going to leave disappointed because they didn't hit the big promise, even though they've had results and success and wins. So do that. Smaller believable promises, over deliver on the delivery side, and what will happen is clients will stay in the flow of that whole situation. They'll just last longer. Your agency will be better. It'll run smoother. It'll be more sellable. You'll have more clients who pay you 24, 36, 40, 50, 100 times, and less clients who pay you for 2 months and leave angry, which is what most agencies have. So I hope that's useful to you guys. And we're probably gonna do this again next week, but I might not see you guys for a week or two while we're in travel mode. But after that, I'll be back on it. I know I missed you guys too much, so I hope this was helpful for you guys. And if you're not already, follow the damn YouTube channel, because I'm sharing some of the best stuff on this, and I'm only going to be cranking it up. So we're going to be sharing more about insides of what's actually working in the coolest agencies, and you'll get just so many inside tips from people actually doing this, as well as obviously my cool ideas. So if you're not already, I'm going to post the link on the replay and make sure you grab that. But other than that, may the force be with you guys, and much love.